So when I learned about these two groups doing this Zoom discernment, I thought this would be a wonderful thing to share with everyone. And I had got invitations from both of them to participate in it, and I accepted. And then I asked them if they would present what they have here to the membership committee. And they were very generous and said, yes, we would really like to do that. So I'm going to call on Sandra Squires first. She is from the Diocesan Assembly of Nebraska, and she has, I think you just completed your third Zoom pre-discernment class.
Yeah, third or fourth.
Third or fourth. Yeah, and I'll let you give the background to how this all came about, but I just wanted you to know the next one we're going to have is going to be from the Diocese of Los Angeles. And I really like having that comparison. Theirs now is going to be open to the whole province. Right now, yours has just been for your diocese. So Sandra, would you like to take the floor? And
how long do I have, Kathy? So I
would say 15 minutes. Does that give you enough time?
Okay. Yes, I think so. I've kind of.
If it's longer, that's fine. We'll go longer.
Okay. All right. I'm from Nebraska, and the province I'm in is Province 6. And so, as you know, your national president is from our province. So she actually has been involved in this, as has Kathy, as a visitor. And what I wanted to do is just kind of go through some of the things that we do. Please stop me at any time, because I may say something and you might forget it, and it might be really important. So we started this kind of out of necessity, because we had a chapter that had almost completed its process. Actually, it had completed its study. And the person who had led the study just kind of disappeared. She took their checks. She did not cash them herself. She gave them to the church, never were cashed checks. We found out later that they had been cashed and they were sitting in an account waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And we were trying to get to a way that we could engage these people, but they were 450 miles away from me. And there wasn't a way that I could really go out there. We didn't have anybody closer than about 150 to 200 miles within our diocese. So it was just one of those things where we were trying to problem solve. How can we help these people go through the process, revive them, and get them started and complete the process? So that's what started it. And then the diocesan assembly president said, well, if we're going to do something like that, let's make it open to everybody. And so we started with this kind of really roughly, if you want to come, this is the time to come and be on Zoom with us. There was not any real, I guess I would have said, we saw it in the strategic plan after we had done it. And we said, oh, we did something good. And so that was kind of the, the beginning. It wasn't deliberate, it wasn't planned, and it just kind of happened. So we learned a lot. We made our share of mistakes and so forth. And then there was a need for 2 women to be reinstated, who both had compromised health situations. So with them in kind of a concentrated format. And then it became obvious that this was a way that we were going to be able to reach people, especially in those areas where there might be one person going through, and people in the group thought it might be nice for them to meet others throughout the diocese. So we promoted it in the diocesan ministry memo that goes out to every person, and then also send it out to the people in the diocesan assembly. So all the presidents were notified that this was available. And by the time I had done, these pieces, I was kind of getting a figure. And then we changed, in the middle of the process, we changed study guides. And I had a lot of problems with the study guide right before this one. And probably some of you on this committee have heard from me and say, I wish that woman would just be quiet and go away. But I gave a tremendous amount of input, and I'm glad to say that some of it has been accepted. The next thing we did after promoting this is we then chose a date, all the kinds of things that you do. We didn't start with a specific date or our promotion because it seemed to me more fair that we have people say, I'm interested, and then I try to meet with them and say through email, what works for you, and we can work around so that we can get the most people be able to have available. So out of that, I then put together kind of a packet, which I sent initially the packet in hard copy. I now send it all through digital. And so we set up the meetings. We have a women's ministries account with the diocese. So we have a Zoom account that is ours to use almost exclusively. We loan it out, but it's something that we have control over. Because of some other factors, I know that it's supposed to be done and we do 12 sessions, we do all of them, but we condense it into 8 meetings at an hour and a half per meeting. So we're able to, on those that aren't really, really heavy, although one time I think I did that poorly in my scheduling, we will take maybe 2 that are lighter studies and put them together. And then we'll have a whole hour and a half for maybe a heavier study. And the format of the meeting is very simple. We open with the gratitude prayer and the motto. And we always rotate that among the people who are attending, so they kind of get the idea about reading prayers at the beginning of the meeting, and then we hold the prayer of the order at the end of the meeting. So, sort of present it in a way like you would maybe a meeting. So we start, and of course, the welcoming and how's everybody been this week, very, very briefly. And then I try to share some things that I can about what is in that lesson, and then we discuss their responses to their reading and to their question. Now, earlier, I used to go through step by step. I think because I've done this so many times over the 20 years I've been doing it, both online and offline, that I tend to be a little more likely to integrate the information. So I make sure we hit the questions, but in a format, in a discussion format that hopefully taps into something that they're acceptable with, they respond to. I have added, because of Rule of Life fits so well with the Way of Love from the National Church, I have added where I can the use of those videos, the Way of Love videos, and I use the ones from the first year. And so if we have time, I will include a Way of Love video, and then we'll talk about some aspect of the Way of Love. And I'll say, now this is kind of in preparation for the Rule of Life, and you're going to get that. So they have plenty of time to look at these, and those are about 12 minutes each. And as a result of using those, there are, and I don't get through all of them. One time I tried to get through all of them and it almost killed all of us. But I now just kind of pick and choose, get them into it, and then give them the connection so that if they choose, they can follow up on that. And I always use the kind of introductory video that Michael Curry did at the beginning, sort of explaining the 7 components of the Way of Love. When we're going through and doing the handbook, If I feel like I need to add something to that, I will do some research and add to that to kind of explain it. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. We use the scripture references sometimes. Other times, it seems like what I'm hearing is something else. So I do make some adaptations based on, as I say, having done this for about 20 years. And so it's a little more fluid than just the straightforward. And that seems to also work in the format of Zoom. So this talking head thing I'm doing right now, I apologize for that. I let the group decide at the very beginning whether they want to invite people who can come in and want to see what's going on. I tell them that there's always going to be one session where I'm going to invite people, but that there may be presidents of chapters who want to just kind of visit and see what it's like. And I've had groups say, I don't want that. I want to be able to say anything, and I don't want those people here. And I've had other groupers say, that's fine. So I honor whatever their request is, knowing that we have one session that has visitors. And it's been really interesting to me because we have had, the last 2 times I've done it, I've had a president, no, the last 3 times I've done it, I've had a chapter president commit coming to the entire session so that they could visit it. A couple of them said, I did it because I needed renewal myself. Didn't have a good experience in my discernment. Others have come just because there was no option not to come to the whole thing. And some of them are just really, it's a kind of a boost to them as well. Extra resources. I mentioned the Way of Love videos, and just go to the Way of Love website on the Episcopal Church. You can, and I'm going to show you kind of what that graphic looks like so that you'll recognize it. The other thing is kind of a big deal with them is sometime during the last half of the process, and I like to do it after they have had a good dose of talking about the rule of life, because I figure that's kind of a turning point for a lot of women. Am I going to do this or am I not? And so at that time, I invite people. Nancy has come when she was province president. She came last week as national president. Kathy has come as a member of the national board. Our province president, Mary Westcott, came. I've had the chapter presidents are invited at this meeting, and then the assembly president. And I send them ahead of time some questions to think about. And in those questions, I ask them to think about how they heard about DOK and what attracted them. And then I ask them how DOK has impacted their life. And I just try to make that as conversational as possible to make everybody have a chance to share. And then I ask the people who are in discernment to also tell a little bit about how they heard about it. That way, those of the people in leadership can hear, how are people finding out about Daughters of the King? And then, I hope that we just kind of have a nice discussion and kind of a good exchange. And then people are invited to stay if they want, but they're invited to leave as well. So I typically have had fewer people than I did this time. Everybody accepted. That was why we had so many. But it's usually a 30 to 45 minute segment. It was an hour this time, and I was really grateful to the people who were willing to give us an hour. So that's a really powerful discussion. And then afterwards, we do a little debriefing of that when everybody's kind of gone, and then we do the lesson for that particular week. Another piece of extra material that I use is I use the book Radical Spirituality by Joan Chittister. That's what that second piece is. And Nancy was the one who introduced those pieces to that chapter. And then I think the only thing that we really need left on that chapter, and I think it's a good chapter, we need a little connective glue on that one. It's kind of right there. And so what I did is I had developed something 2 years ago or a year ago, whatever it was, when I used the previous curriculum. And so I just used some of that connective tissue to sort of explain a little bit about what Chittister was going through in her discernment process. One of the things, and I'll close with this, is I asked Nancy when she was province president and is a noted author of wonderful prayers, if she would write a completion of service for a group that was not from the same, all from the same parish. And she did that for us, and I'm happy to share that with anybody. I can send it to Kathy, and she can send it out to the committee. And then you just insert the names. And today was our last day with this group, and it was very interesting because of the 5 members I started with, and this is pretty typical, I didn't get all 5 of them to come in, but one became very ill, and she is really battling with some serious illness. So that one, of course, was unavoidable. The other one came from a very she's a new Episcopalian from a very conservative background. And the vows, taking the vows, was problematic for her. She told us that she had enjoyed the study, but that she would not be making a commitment to be a daughter. And the clergy person, I always have somebody come in and do the opening service and somebody do the ending. She was just great because she and I both assured her, but Ruth was wonderful. Mother Ruth, she said, this is something that it's as important for you to decide not to do as it is for you to do, and you must feel comfortable. And she was just great. So we ended then with a little service of completion, which takes just a few minutes. And we all said goodbye today. So that's kind of what our process looks like. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate that. I know you've put a lot of work into it. Mm-hmm. Anyone that's ever conducted a class puts a lot of time into. I know I appreciate the new study too, because I used to bring in so many extra materials. I felt that there just wasn't enough there. So thank you for that. Okay, Christine, it's great seeing you. I first met Christine way back when we first got started with National Enrichment, and we had our first, what do we call those? It wasn't Dolly then, that was Sam's title. What did you call it?
Oh, I don't even, it was the net, it was any net. National Enrichment Training.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So anyway, we met through that, and you served like 3 terms on the national board, and so she's retired from that. But I'm so glad to see you still involved, and that's wonderful.
I really enjoyed listening to you, Sandra. I could relate to some of the issues. Our first online fall assembly for the Diocese of Los Angeles was in October 2020. And we got the idea that we could do things online. At least some of us did. And I broached the topic with Kimberly that would she be willing to try to do a national enrichment training offered online. Our diocese, the Diocese of Los Angeles, is probably the size of Province 6, maybe not quite, but it's huge. It's very, it's a 6-hour drive to get from one side to the other. So it's, the idea of doing something online to bring people together and offer to everybody was really attractive to me. And Kimberly jumped on board and, as you will see in a moment, really ran with it. Who do I ask to give me screen sharing capabilities? It's already set up?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a few things about it. Our goal was to thoroughly cover the National Study Guide, to prepare potential daughters for membership, and others who wanted to lead the preparation, they were invited to attend. We also wanted to provide additional materials and a rich experience of discernment and spiritual formation. We did our first offering March through June of 2021, and we had 18 registrants, including Province 8 officers that were invited to join us. We ended up with 2 new daughters joining in Los Angeles. I'm not sure what happened elsewhere. We used constant contact to register everybody for the event so we could track them. We used PowerPoint slides, and I will show you an abbreviated version of that in a moment. We used the National Study Guide plus additional enrichment materials. From the beginning, we used prayers, poems, contemplation, and short spiritual practices that we found in other materials. And we designed it around sharing in small breakout rooms or small breakout groups on Zoom to be experiential and interactive. And one of the things that we found after doing this repeatedly is that it's one of the benefits is the relationships that form among the women who take part in this, especially with the breakout rooms, because they can be with somebody who's in the other end of the province. Somebody from San Diego could be in a breakout room with somebody from Oregon or Washington State or Nevada or Arizona. And it shifts the mindset of the participants and the women joining, that this is beyond just the congregational chapter. This is a larger organization, and everybody really enjoys that aspect of it. We, last year's course ran from February through June of 2022. We opened it to all Province 8 daughters and those discerning. So anybody could take part in it. We had 66 registrants for our second run, and about half of them actually finished the discernment process. 3 new daughters in the Diocese of Los Angeles and 8 to 10 new daughters within the province. We added Judith Valenti's book on how to live, what the rule of Saint Benedict teaches us about happiness, meaning, and community. And we have that as, we just do it in sections, and most of the book reading is done offline without the meeting, outside of our meeting. So our planned course for January through May of 2023 is open to all Province 8 daughters, those discerning, national officers, anybody who wants to take part in it. We have 14 registrants so far, several from Nevada, and Nevada is one of our unassembled dioceses at the moment. So this allows us to reach out to Nevada and help them gather more daughters, new daughters, and reinstatements. Kimberly and I have been working ahead of time to prepare the slides and the programs early. We found ourselves a week before the next study gathering together and pulling it all together. And we made a commitment to ourselves that we are going to be ahead of the game and be ready to go at least 3 weeks before each session. And we've got a lot to build on already, but the tweaks and things, it takes time to do it right. So I would like to share we call it Discerning the Call. This is our presentation to you. Kimberly and I have been co-facilitators, and we'll continue to do it, but we also are looking for ways to bring in others, maybe including one person. Actually, I think tonight we're going to ask for any chapter presidents or members of the diocesan board, if they would like to be a co-facilitator on one section of the study. We start with a welcome session, and it kind of follows the same layout. We open with a welcome cafe. People can come in early and chat with one another and get any kind of, if they have prayer requests or things are going on, they can come in early and talk about that. We have an opening ritual and introductions. We have an overview of the course. Then we always include a spiritual practice, and we have a farewell cafe at 5. So we've got 2 hours of meeting, and the farewell cafe, that can go on for half an hour if people want to stay and ask questions. This is the prayer we use to open. This is from the National Study Guide. It's from the National Handbook. And we cover the requirements for membership. So everybody knows that this is a requirement, that it's a 3-month preparation period. They know what to expect. The overview of the course is 6 2-hour sessions on Zoom, and we expect people to attend at all 6 online sessions. We know that things happen, but the expectation is that you will attend all 6 sessions. You're also expected to pray daily and spend at least 2 hours of preparation on course materials per week. Attendance at chapter meetings and assemblies, if they happen during the time, be involved in some sort of service, and develop a rule of life. We make these suggestions to keep them on track. Begin each day with prayer. Hold all of those discerning in prayer. Commit to completing the study. Set aside time each week. Answer the questions in writing and be prepared to share their answers. We encourage, because we have women coming from all over the province, we encourage them to find a study buddy. And this has been really one of the big successes. Get to know at least one new person today being the preparation meeting. Get to know at least one new person and reconnect with somebody you've met before. Exchange email addresses or phone numbers and ask how to contact them. Send a hi there. Thank you for being my study buddy message right after the session today. Contact your buddy more than once or more than one, at least once during each week between our meeting dates. And ask at least one question that would elicit an answer and give one encouraging comment. You might want to exchange your answers to one or more questions from the National Study Guide. Tell your buddy you are praying for her and do it. So our breakout rooms, this is a sample for the first study, What is a Christian? And we just have a procedure here that we put online for everybody to see what's expected. We focus on listening attentively. We ask for someone to keep time and allow each person to share. And it's really important that everybody gets an opportunity to share. This is a sample prompt for what is a Christian. So we repeat the question from the National Study Guide. And then notice the emphasis is on the emphasis in the first part of the question is on being, but everything listed next is an example of doing. After each person has had a chance to share what the more is for her, as a group, try to craft a statement that suggests how one can be the more that defines a Christian. So this is giving them some idea of what to do in the breakout room, what they're working towards. This is a sample of the section on the rule of prayer, which we spend quite a bit of time on. There's a lot of Kimberly has added a lot of wonderful photography and illustrations that keep people engaged. This is just an example of the additional material that we talk about. We always stress confidentiality. It's one of the most important parts of our life as daughters, our chapter life as daughters, but we continue to stress it during the study. It helps people feel more comfortable, I think, when they're in the breakout rooms as well. This is study 9, what is a rule of life? And we do a lot about Benedictine spirituality in here. This idea about the tomato plant cage came from actually Jane Tomaine and a presentation she did for our diocesan daughters. How does the wireframe help the plant to grow in healthy and productive ways? This is another part of how do we know God's will and how do we do God's will? So these are the type of things we focus on. This one takes a while, the humility. I think the study 11, we spend a lot of time on humility because it's a hot topic with lots and lots of questions, and we want to make sure that people have enough time to really talk things through. And get to the So this is a sample of poetry that's used throughout the study from outside sources. And we have time for meditation and contemplation of poetry, just seeing what comes up. And this is the closing prayer. So, let's see. I am blessed to have Kimberly to work with. She's a certified spiritual director, and she's college level teacher, and she's just amazing. So a lot of it's the team, but that is our presentation. So